Economic and Workforce Development Series. I recently learned that Martin's family has lived in this area of the Mid-Coast since the 1800s. So I guess we should consider him well-versed in local knowledge. 29 years ago, Martin began his current career in the field of real estate. His current business is Kate's Real Estate, based in Rockland, where he manages a substantial portfolio of listings and sales. He and his team have developed a depth of experience in residential, commercial, business relocation, lifestyle, and transitional real estate needs. During his career, Martin has been active as a leader within the Realtor Trade Association, as well as within the town of Camden. Currently, Martin serves on the Knox County Board of Assessment Review. We are all aware of the regional concerns for viable community growth through home attainment and ownership for new and younger community members. This is one of Martin's passions for our area. Please welcome Martin Cates.
Thank you very much for that nice intro, John. I appreciate being here, and nice to see you all. A lot of familiar faces, and nice to see you. Nice to see those I haven't seen before or not familiar with. Anyway, it's a deep topic, and I probably can't cover everything that I'd love to cover with you today, but certainly happy to cover what I can in Q&A when we get there. So as precursor to this, there are a couple of publications that I look at routinely. We all look at different economic trending and so forth. Before I do my screen share, what I wanted to talk about was there's one publication that some of you may get, and this is penned by Kiplinger out of Washington. A lot of their forecasting comes out on a weekly basis, and there was an article that came out February 26th that discussed the housing market in particular with their first page and a half. So some of the summaries on that I just wanted to pass along. Obviously, there's some things that we know it's going to be another year of strong price gains with would-be buyers, and we'll get to sort of that sheer number of buyers here in a few minutes. A lot of people think the market is driven solely by COVID. Well, it is in large part, but that also is a definition for a cultural shift as well that I think that we are currently experiencing in Maine, let alone Mid-Coast Maine. Inventories of existing homes for sale have been lean for many years. COVID really is just the vehicle that exacerbated everything within a poor listing market. We've been dwindling, and I'll have you some numbers on that here in a few minutes. But in general, over the country right now, we're short of what we need for listing inventory by over 3 million homes. That means there's a lot of people in the market that would like to buy that can't buy because we just don't have the inventory for them to buy. So what are the reasons for that? Well, you can really start, you can generalize. If we generalize a bit, we don't have some markets which are building homes, don't have enough buildable lots. Regulatory requirements in different geographics hinder the would-be developers. And that in part, I got this article that was John forwarded to me in the last email that I think you all have, which I found very interesting to read. Regulatory requirements are a big player in what we're doing now. We have too few workers. We don't have enough employment right now. I mean, people to be employed. We have more jobs and we have people available to do them at this point in time. Materials are affecting a huge part of our market right now. Just in the last few months alone, lumber prices in a lot of geographics have gone up over 70%. That's a huge increase, and there are many more stories to go along with that. Home prices, generally home prices nationwide are projected to go 7%, though regionally in the Northeast and specifically in Maine, last year we increased at 15.8%. We're certainly going to we stand a chance of meeting that again this coming year. So the next thing is the entry level of would-be buyers. Buyers traditionally start out by renting. Buyers who rent want to ultimately buy. It's the American dream. And if they get ready to position to buy, what happens is they're looking for that. Well, we've kind of, in my world, shelved the affordable term, more like workforce housing. They want to be in line for that. That's part of the step up in their family life that they covet. And as you will see with the numbers that I'm about ready to show you, that that first-time buyer home doesn't exist for us in a large part, if not a good part of the state here at this point. So I'm going to do a little screen share, and we'll kind of dive into the numbers at this point, and I'll be able to give you some background, some history. Can you all see that okay?
Looks good, Mark.
Good, good. Okay, so this is an example of a monthly press release, which is done through my trade association, the Maine Association of Realtors. This press release that I'm showing you right now was published on January 22nd, 2021. We're always a month behind in issuing data. So this one was for the year 2020. This is a summary of the year 2020. The highlighted points that I have in here for you, listing sales, listings show a sales increase of 9.82% for all single family homes sold during 2020. The median sales price, how we often talk about this, was $256,000 statewide, which is an increase of 13.78%. The next thing that I highlight in here for you is during the month of December only, sales across the state of Maine were up 31.5%. This is worthy to note with a net price increase of 15.3%. And the importance of that is that we're doing the COVID catch-up. We're doing a market last year at this time, like a lot of people, I was sitting in my dining room wondering just how we were going to survive, what we were going to do, how was I going to make a living, how were people in my office going to make a living. So really the COVID market, if you want to call it that, really didn't start until after April, mid-April into May. At that point in time, we sat dormant for a while, and I kind of liken it to the Kentucky Derby. And picture being at the gate at the Kentucky Derby, and the bell ringing, the gate goes up, and you're off. From April, mid-April until Thanksgiving, I had 3 days off. That's how crazy this market got, not just for me, but for everybody in my world. If you were a practicing full-time broker, agent in the state of Maine, you were going until you dropped every single day, just to keep up with demand, keep up with what people wanted to have happen. I'm into my 29th year and I've never seen anything like it. So if you look at nationally, December 2020 sales of existing family homes jumped 22.8%. Again, a national compilation of people closing on everything they put under contract 3 or 4 months earlier. So that's where we're playing this big catch up and showing that sales trend. So if you look at Northeast, the Northeast region climbed 27.4%. That's huge. Northeast average sale price at $362,000. Granted, that's not every place in the state of Maine, but wait till I start showing you some of those numbers. So the next page that I'm going to scroll to is the chart that comes out. And again, this is done month to month, but this is a year-end compilation. I've just highlighted all the counties because we report it by county. Certainly numbers are available for community to community, and I'll show you some of those numbers in a minute for our more geographic, local geographic. But the ones that I want to point out, Cumberland County always tends to lead us in the market. So if you look at Cumberland County, you look at the number of units in 2020 was only up 1.08%. And there's a reason for that small increase, and that is just lack of inventory. Right now, what's going on there is absolutely amazing. I've got 5 agents who work that market. Homes right there over a weekend period of time, It's not unusual for a house to show as much as 60 to 80 times and take as many as 20 to 40 offers. And that's the nature of the market. Is it starting to happen here? It is, but not quite to that drama, I would say. But if you look at their average sale price now, or median sales price, you are looking at $365,000 for the year 2020 to buy in Cumberland County. That's not really supporting first-time buyer or workforce housing. What it's doing is pushing people out to the other markets. So let's scroll down a little bit to Knox County, the county that we live in. I think of our market in the Mid-Coast as really being influenced by three counties, Knox, Lincoln, Waldo counties. So Knox County, excuse me, was up 23.4%. And the price, the average median, the median price went from last year of 236,000 to 268,000. That was up 13.6%. Lincoln County always tends to trend a little bit higher before we do. I always look at Lincoln County because I do sales in Lincoln County. And I look at Lincoln County when they start rising, usually we chase it by anywhere from 30 to 60 days. But I also want to draw your eye line to Waldo County. Waldo County, as you can see, in 2019 had a median sales price of $181,500. Now up to $224,000. That's the first time since pre-Great Recession that I've seen Waldo County hit that level. Waldo County is now accepting a lot of buyers who are looking for that affordable home. So the next chart that I want to show you is sort of the same thing sliced a different way. If you look at the counties and the number of sales per county, obviously Cumberland is still the leader at over 5,000 units sold. If you look at Knox County, 759, Lincoln 756, and then of course Waldo running at 691. So for the three county market, we're selling some units, and these are all residential. This does not include land, it does not include multi-unit, and it does not include commercial at all. And then again, you see another tally for the total residential sales volume in the state of over $7 billion. And the statewide median both for 19 and 20% change of just under 13%. So now you look at the 2020 total sold units in the state of Maine at over 23,000. And as compared to, I can I'm going to draw your eye line back to the available listing inventory here shortly. So let's scroll to the next one. So I want you to look at the top left that says new listings. So in 2016, we had statewide available new listings at 28,538 properties. And then you can watch the trend going down until we reach 2020. These are listings that are new to the market. They're being listed, sold, listed, sold. So these are the available number of listings out there over a year's period of time. So you can see how we've decreased in the amount of listings to be able to buy. Then you look at pending sales in 2016, that's to your right side. In 2016, we had 19,600 pending sales. And then you can see that we work up to 2020 with 22,000 sales, 20 pending sales. The communities below show the biggest percent increase by state. That's there. It doesn't really hit for us locally, but that's certainly some dramatic numbers as well. Closed sales. Closed sales on the left side are looking at 2016 at just over 19,600. And then you look at 2020 at 22,300. And you can see how that is eating into the inventory continuing. But the statistic that I really want you to look at is inventory of homes for sale. If you look at 2016, for inventory of available homes, we had 12,000, over 12,000. Now we have a little over 4,000. It's less than that now. It is running, I just saw a chart this morning that said it's really running somewhere around 3,800. I'm probably, in my trade association, there are over 6,100 people doing what I do. We have more people trying to sell homes in this state than we have available homes to sell. So to say it's a pig scramble is a bit of, that's a polite way to put it. The reality is, out of those 6,000, that probably about 2,200 are ones that are doing the bulk of the business at this point. There just isn't the property to sell. And that reflects, you'll see some interesting numbers for our market as well. But if you look at the next chart, so median sales price, which was in 2016, 190,000, now is topping over 258,000 in the median sales price. So if you look at that and you look at average sale price is running now at 319,000. That's pretty high. That's starting to, it works well past that affordable buyer profile. Days on market. Days on market, this is measured from the date that something goes on market, goes under contract, and closes. And at 62 days, it sounds like a lot of time, but given the overload on the financing system right now, what happens is that is actually starting to get longer just because of the sheer burden on the system. Our banking and financial systems and closing systems here have not been prepared to deal with the volume that we've got coming in. So it's creating angst, delays in our market, our buyer market. Sellers are not being able to get out when they want to get out. Buyers aren't being able to get in when they want to get in. So now the next chart on the right-hand side that I'd like you to look at is the percent of original list price received. So in 2016, as percent of list to sale, we were doing right around 92.6%. Right now, we're doing 96.8%. And in that, we are now, in many markets, hitting anywhere from 100 to 110% of list to sale, which creates its own set of dynamics and own problems. But you can see how that changes. And when you take a $300,000 property and shift that price point by 4%, it really is a lot of money. There's a lot of money in the system. It's a lot of money for the banking system, for the appraisal system, and for buyer and sellers' pocketbooks. So the next thing, where are buyers coming from? This is when we record sales, we record the zip code of where the buyer comes from. So if you look at, for instance, if you look at the state of Maine, over 14,000 buyers came from the state of Maine. 14,000 citizens of our state were able to change their living situation somehow. And then you've got the breakdown of where the buyers are coming from, state to state to state. Obviously, right now, what we're seeing is 70.2%, 70.29% of the buyers made a move within the state of Maine, which represents a decrease of 5%, over 5%. Really, in my world, if we're looking for our own citizens to make their move, that's not really a good sign in an up market like we have now. And the reason really becomes very simple because they're being priced out of the market in certain geographics. Fact two, the majority of Maine's out-of-state buyers came from Massachusetts. Over 9% of our buyers came from Massachusetts, followed by New Hampshire at 4%, New York at 2%, and then Florida and California, respectively. So one of the things that I point out to people is that in my office and with my market personally, I would say close to 38% of the transactions that we did were people from outside the state of Maine. A typical call came in. I got a call last May. It was, I think it was May 2nd, as a matter of fact, from a gentleman and his wife in Connecticut. And the minute I said hello, his statement was, "I need some Maine air." So, and he chuckled when he said it, but he used that phrase over and over and over again. He needed to get away from the metro environment. He needed to get to a place that he felt was more secure for him and his wife. They were in their early 50s and were typical to the buyer market and could pretty much work anywhere they wanted to work. And doing the remote from home work. The second example I give, it was in June, and I took a call from a couple from Portland, Oregon. And they made it very clear they can work where they wanted to work. They had 2 young kids, one 8 and one 10. And they had reached the end of their rope where they were living, and they knew that Mid-Coast Maine was where they wanted to be. They'd done some research on it and visited here a couple of times. And within 3 months, they were totally moved here from their life in Oregon to be here and in an environment they felt more safe doing. Quite frankly, they're very typical of what that buyer market is doing now and what they're looking for. So what next? Let's talk about our own area. Camden. I find this to be this is what we call a trailing chart. And by that, I mean, we're looking backwards 12 months, trailing 12 months. I can give you the February snapshot, which is right now, if you look at median sales price at $465, average sale price at $444. Look at the changes in that. It's up 56% and 36% respectively. Look at the trailing 12 months. Trailing 12 months is looking right now at an average sales price of $563,000. So the one thing, your discussion that you're having, I think is good and really is more indicative of what I believe needs to be a community-wide discussion. Not just in Camden, not just in Rockport, not just Mid-Coast Maine, but for our state in general, because we're heading in an interesting trajectory, in my opinion. So if you look at who's buying, where they buying, we're starting to price ourselves into an interesting dilemma. The next thing is condominium sales. Yes, condominium is part of our market. We're not terribly rich in condos, but certainly we're selling more condos than we have in the past. And we're looking at average sales now of right in that $300,000 to $500,000 range, some more. But as you can see, we didn't sell that many. And then the next thing on the running chart, you can see the trend which continues to rise in median sales price of single family homes. And that's a rolling 12-month calculation, and the same thing in the median sales of condos. Although the condo in February took a dip, mostly because of a couple of sales that were on the lower end of the spectrum. So let's shift over to Rockport right now. Rockport running at trailing 12 months, draw your eye line to that. Although if we look at February, The sales in median sales price at $695, which is a whopping 231% increase, and average sales price of $680,000 is a 224% increase. And if I look at the trailing 12 months for sales in Rockport, median sales price at $461,500, average sales price at $635,900, up 37% and 40% respectively. And then if I look at the condo market, there tends to be more availability of condos within the Rockport market. And so if I look at that, we are looking at the trailing 12 months at a median of $228,500 and an average of $255,000. So that becomes a little bit more affordable if you are a condo buyer. But that's still up significantly at 36%, 25% respectively. So the next thing is median sales price. Median sales price of single family now becomes you can see the 12-month calculation of single family. That's quite a jump, and it's quite a trend on the upward scale. Condos, as you can see in Rockport, probably tends to remain a little bit on the flat side at this point. So now I want to show you what's going on in because we're talking more about the 5-town. Let's talk about what's going on in Hope, Appleton, Lincolnville, which are neighboring communities that influence the Camden Rockport area market quite a bit. So we'll take a look at Hope. Right now in Hope, we've got a median sales price of $295,000, an average sales price of $332,700. That is up 45.9% and 29% respectively. That's quite a jump in their market. As you can see, the numbers are much different in terms of the new listings during the year that happened in Hope were 36. The pending sales 27, and days on market until sales a little less than probably the average at 55. And that's quite a decrease because certainly the market's moving very quickly in Hope as well. Very, very desirable. And then the chart below, we talk about condos. I don't even know that there's a condo in Hope. It might be, but where it would be, I don't know. Median sales price of single family, you can see that trend significantly upward. And then the rolling 12-month calculation on condos, there is nothing, so there's no chart to hit. Lincolnville. Lincolnville is somewhat of a different market to talk about, though it's still interesting. Now we have, in looking at the trailing 12 months, we're looking at a median again of 295, slightly higher average at 361 in Lincolnville. And that's up significantly. And again, there are some condos in Lincolnville, and you can see quite a few of those have sold. And their average sale price running at 347. And then again, the same kind of graph upward. The big difference as compared to Camden Rockport market might be condos are on the rise. There are more condos available in Lincolnville. And then we go to Appleton. Appleton with a total of 24 listings that came on, 22 that came on the market in the trailing 12 months. Pending sales running at 14. Closed sales were 17, up 11.8%. Median sales price at 214, average sales price of 188. You can see a difference out of the 5 towns. Appleton certainly hits the slightly more affordable market for people. And again, we have no condos to really talk about. So the next chart I want to show you is Knox County in general, because what's going on in the world around us. So what I did when I looked at the counties, The counties, I guess, excluded the islands. I did not include Islesboro, North Haven, Vinyl Haven. And this county report does not include Camden Rockport. I wanted to filter out the data and keep that separate so for you to see. So if I look at the remaining towns in Knox County, I look at what occurred in February, and we had 39 new listings. We had 25 pending sales and 26 closed. 2021, you can see the comparison numbers there so far. Median sales price running again high for the county. For years that I always felt that if our county average sales price was running at 235 and under, we were supplying a huge part of the workforce housing market. Obviously, we're not there now. We've gone pretty high as comparison. So we look at Knox County, again at 271.5 for a median and 391 as an average. The spike is not just confined to Camden Rockport or the 5-town, it is hitting other areas in the county. By comparison, I can tell you about the last trailing average. I didn't print it, but give you an idea. Rockland has always been labeled as a lot of workforce or affordable housing, comparatively speaking. And at last year, or I say 2019, averaging under 190 is now averaging at 240 and above. So there certainly have been part of this crunch and continuing to escalate. So that gives you a snapshot of what the county is doing right now. And then again, look at the charts, very, very similar charts of going up, the trend going upward in median sales price throughout the county. And then also condominium that goes up and down. We don't have a ton of condos to be talking about. So the next chart that I wanted to show you, which is eye-opening. So Camden has, as of this report time, I did this, refresh this on Saturday. And when I looked at Camden residential listings, active listings, residential only, there were 10 listings. 9, I took out the one that's priced at $8.5 million because I didn't feel I felt that skewed the data too much. But I wanted you to see that 9 listings with a low of 429 and a high of 1.95 with an average of 1.1, and you're looking at 114 days on the market. And that shows our total inventory in the Camden market at this point. Are a lot of buyers discouraged from trying to find property in Camden? Absolutely. The next one, I did the same thing for Rockport. I wanted to show you what the total listing inventory of Rockport. Again, I went under 2 million. 14 listings with an average list price of $856.3. 100 days on the market. And that's hard to fit that. The low price one was $239, which I believe was manufactured home. And of course the high at 1.975. Okay, so next I wanted to show you what's going on in Hope, one of our neighboring town. 2 listings in Hope. That's it. 2 listings. One's priced at $499, the other one's priced at $795. Let's go to Appleton. Let's take a look at what's going on there. 3 listings on the market. Low at $275, high is $650. And then next we go to Lincolnville. We have 12 listings on the market in Lincolnville right now with a low of $359 and a high of $1.695. So you can see, much to your concern of why you're all here listening to this right now, is our listing market is pretty paltry. We don't have much going on. Spring, we hope, will bring some new listings to market for people to look at, but we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. So then I wanted to give you active listings for towns in Knox County, excluding islands and the 5 towns. So in the entire county, there are 43 properties on the market with a low of 185 as a list and a high of 1.495. And I've highlighted the towns below for you to see where they're coming from. And I did again do this under 2 mil. So that is a compilation of the data that I have for you. And what I know is getting at 12:46. I know we're getting dangerously close to my time. And but I wanted to make sure to give time to open to questions. And I'm going to stop the share right now. But one of the things that I wanted to point out to you, this article, which was forwarded, I wanted to point this out because I think this is great discussion points for where people and leaders in this area would like to see that discussion go if you feel it's worthy of having that discussion. And I made many highlights on it for talking points, not just, for this, if you want to talk about it, I'd be happy to, but the idea being that the talking points out of this are great in general for our market. So for that, I would like to open it up for questions.
Thanks very much, Martin. That's pretty insightful as to the state of our housing in the area here. Rich Anderson and Matt Brown will field some questions now. There's a slew of them in the chat area. So gentlemen, take it away, please.
Can I make
Go ahead, John.
I just would like to share, not only with our speaker, with the group, that the article that Martin is referencing, that he has highlighted, came from Vicky Dudera's office. It was part of a program that she put together recently. The committee has it, but I made a mistake in that I had intended to post that with Martin's recorded presentation and the PDF of his slides. I'm sorry, Martin, they have not everyone has seen that article as of yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Martin, first one from Jane Monhart. Why are the sales prices in North Haven increasing so much more than elsewhere in Maine?
In North Haven? North Haven's always been a very desirable place to be. In terms of, I watch what goes on in North Haven from a market point. I don't practice sales in North Haven. It's not a market strength of mine, but North Haven tends to be, it's just a huge draw card. All the islands are. When the market started coming back on the islands, all three, Islesboro, Vinyl Haven, North Haven, boy, price points and desirability came back with a vengeance. I think it is not necessarily all the year-round living community that's driving that market. It's coming from different money, different locations.
Okay, Matt.
Thank you. Yeah, hi, Martin. This comes from Diane Lebson. What are the demographics of the people who are moving into the state, county, town, age, income, retirees versus virtual employees versus small business owners? Do you have any sort of either anecdotal or is there any data on that?
In terms of firm data, no. Anecdotal, yes. So the market tends to shake out kind of like this, and I'm going to be very general in this, but at the price point that exists above, say, the 400, 500 range, the typical buyer tends to be at or near retirement, and typically is not, with children in tow, so to speak. And they just have their lifestyle tends to be different. They gravitate more to the coastline. They're looking for properties that there's two styles of properties. They either want the downtown, walk to town type of property, or they want total isolation. So that feeds the peninsula market well. It also feeds the market well in Camden Rockport, for instance. The second part of that question is related to ones that are looking here and really want to be here, but are struggling to find their place is I would say anywhere from mid-30s. The early entry millennial buyer, they're the first-time buyer. And just to give you a snapshot of the first-time buyers oftentimes are saddled with a lot of college debt, and they may make good income, but they have not a ton of money to put down. Therefore, their affordability becomes somewhat limited, and you're usually looking at a makeup of a couple, both working, both trying to strive to the income level of maybe together 100 and a quarter, 140, something like that. That usually puts them in roughly that $300,000 purchase range. When you get much beyond that $300,000 range, that really gets it outside both the lender's capability to lend on to them, as well as down payment monies to put down, and it sort of takes them out of the game. So they have to start pushing out to other locations. That buyer tends to be a bit more mobile. They're not necessarily, they would like to be part of a certain kind of a community, but if they can't make it, they will find their place, which may be here in this area, but it also may be elsewhere, to pick a different geographic in the state. Because as long as they have good internet, and that is the number one question we get, do you have good internet? If you have good internet, I'm interested in looking in your community. If you don't have that, and we all know that there is a real disparity between what is considered good internet, cell phone availability. You don't have to drive too far inland to find out that you get some differences there. The upgrader buyer, the first-time buyer, is really the big critical crunch that we're here talking about, and that's where I see the biggest difference. The mid-level buyer, it's like right now I have several buyers I'm working with, and to give you an idea of how many buyers, just myself personally, I have 32 buyers that I'm working with that I can't find a thing for. And the buyers are a mix. They're retirement. There's a retiring veterinarian coming from outside of Boulder, Colorado. And there is a house I showed last night to a couple moving from Washington, D.C. with a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old who are not attending public school, but attending private school. And they are not subscribing to one community or another, but they're in that rare price range, which is right for a first-time buyer, which is in that $400,000 range. So it's a wide variety of buyers that are looking to be here for various reasons. A lot of it to availability of resources.
Thank you.
Martin, that one of the things that just struck me when you were talking there, that you said that 70% of the sales are from within Maine or moving within Maine, but that's not true in our area then, isn't it? Because I keep hearing you talk about Colorado and Florida and all the other places. So is that quite a different statistic here in our Knox County?
It would be interesting to see the difference. I do believe there's a strong difference because the percentage of 70% in Maine is Aroostook County, Piscataquis County, Knox County. I truly believe from along the coastline, I truly believe that number, if we were to analyze that, would be highly skewed compared to the 70%. That's a good thought.
Good, thanks. The next question comes from Jonathan Goss, and he wants to know when younger individuals and families are considering a community in Maine, what is their generation looking for? What is most important to them? I think you've answered part of that, Martin, with the internet, but is there anything else that's really important to these younger families coming in?
Yes. And I'll say it one more time, internet is really the number one question, whereas 2 years ago, 5 years ago, the question used to be about what's the community and what are the schools. Schools are still very important, don't get me wrong. They really are. But it's not driving the ship as much as it has in past years. What people are looking for now is community. What is the community about? What can I find in where I'm living? What can I be involved in? What can I, who am I going to associate with? Part of what we do, and certainly what we're doing in my office, is we oftentimes give people driving maps. Go drive around the community, see what you see. Take a walk up and down the sidewalks, see what you see. Recreation, can we walk? Can we hike? Can we go swim? Can we go to the lake? Can we go to the ocean? Where can we get? So I think to that end, it's a variety of different things, mostly driven by community. How am I going to be welcome here?
Great,
Martin,
thank you.
I want to thank you. We've run out of time for our regular meeting. I wasn't sure, are you able to stay afterwards to answer a few questions, or do you have?
Yep, I can hang on for about 15 minutes if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. That'd be great. Rich and Matt, I'll turn it back over to you for some follow-up questions for Martin.
Good, thanks, Chris. So Martin, have you ever experienced anything like this before? A year like this, not a pandemic, but a real estate market like this before? And what's likely to happen in response to all of this? Is relative to construction or regulations, land prices? I mean, what do you think is going to happen going out of this?
That's a $1 million question. But here's what everything I'm reading points in a couple of ways. One, we know we have lack of inventory. We have over 40% less on the market today than we had 1 and 2 years ago, which means we have a ton of buyers that are looking to buy. People need and crave the housing. The housing not being available we're not going to make up 40% less inventory in very short order. Building is right now, depending on builders you talk with, digest this number. Building, you want to build a house today. So right now we're looking at somewhere between $350 to $425 a square foot to build a house. So if you look at that kind of numbers, you can do math just as easy as I can. But if you're looking at $600,000 to build a house, that is not going to be that first-time buyer. It's not going to be the workforce housing buyer. They simply can't afford that. Materials aren't available, and then one of the other things is we oftentimes in the rural settings don't have infrastructure available to make that happen. It's going to be a while. We're going to be struggling with how we handle housing for a while, and who we bring into our communities to live in these areas. As in being in my world, I struggle with that inside of me. Yes, I love working with people of all kinds, but I think it hurts a community when we don't have housing. I don't think to me, there's a difference between subsidized housing and affordable housing and workforce housing. And does that answer your question at all, Richard?
Yeah. Well, do you think towns are going to have to respond with their regulations?
I think it, frankly, is
Make it easier to build. I mean,
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. One of the big roadblocks, and this article that John referenced, that I referenced as well, talks about some of the introspection we need to do as communities on how we can work to try to provide opportunities for people. If we're going to be more than one dimensional, and if we're going to be diverse, we're going to have to really think about how we're going to provide this and how we're going to deal with it. It's a community discussion. I suppose in a way it becomes political, but it's that conversation that needs to happen.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, Chris had a question about housing in Rockland. What's the trend there, and is there inventory there in Rockland?
Rockland it's a unique market. There are no more listings in Rockland available than there are Camden. There's been a couple come on recently. Right now, what was, I'm trying to think, because I did a presentation for a housing committee in Rockland about 2 or 3 years ago, well, about 4 years ago. And I remember at that time, the average price in Rockland was running at roughly 152. In 2019, though, and this is anecdotal, I believe this to be reasonably accurate, it was about 189. Now it's running at just under 240 with no availability. So the other thing is too, you measure, Rockland is, for the good, bad, or indifferent, has a lot of tenants. There are a lot of multi-unit properties here, people renting. Right now, multi-units, they just, they're selling for prices that don't necessarily match economic sense. But we don't have a ton of property available at all to buy.
Thank you on that. When you are talking to buyers, this is from Jonathan Goss, how far are people willing to commute from where they live to whatever their job may be? Does that come up in the conversation?
It does. Good question. And typically, I find the tolerance level is 30 to 45 minutes pushing out. If we go to the rural markets, if you hit the main areas, the main travel areas, like for instance, Route 17, you hit the more rural communities like Union, Washington, places like that. As long as you're not too remote, you can get a pretty decent internet service and good availability. And I find that it springboards to, if you look at the medical professional community, they are looking to be usually within 30 minutes, ideally 25 minutes of a hospital wherever they're working. This is also in part a problem. I've talked with some medical professionals who are looking, for relocation. The lack of housing is influencing those kind of professions moving in because they have no inventory and they also have no place to rent. We have no rentals available. Right now, the professional community is at a point of where they're paying $1,500 to $2,200 a month for an average apartment, if they can find it.
Yeah, thank you.
And Jim Bowden just wanted to know if your data includes private sales as well as brokered sales.
No, good question. It does not, and that is done different means of research. If I go to the main, the larger community to have full-time assessors, and they tend to be more up to date on collating the information from sales, it's easier to find. But when you get to the smaller communities, they just don't have the staff available to keep up to date with that. So the only way to do that really is to physically go to a town office that unfortunately has been pretty much shut down through COVID.
Thank you. This is a paraphrase from a question from Joan, but are there developers and are there contractors building new housing or newly reasonably priced housing in the area? Or is it just because of shortage of materials and price that's not going on much?
Good question. I think the easiest way to answer that is, well, sort of two answers to the question. Pre-Great Recession, we used to do what I call a lot of spec and paper spec sales. And what I mean by paper spec is that it was not uncommon for a builder to have a broker like myself list something, and there's still a few of those happening in this market, but list something that really is it's not built yet. The builder may say, I can supply you this house, this footprint, looking something like this for this price. And then you negotiate any changes and upgrades and so forth from there. What happens is that most now are unwilling to do that sort of thing because there are some suppliers of materials for building which will only guarantee price points for as much as 3 days. And that's hard when you're chasing that kind of a market and chasing price points. That doesn't give you a warm fuzzy on listing a speculation home, because what might cost $300,000 today might cost $320,000 in 2 weeks. Hard to chart.
And John wanted to know what's the price range for a workforce housing? What can they qualify for? I mean, sort of the typical wage earner in family income.
most in this area, we try to keep most people want to be 300,000 or under. The benchmark used to be, probably 2 years ago, the benchmark was 2.25. Then the benchmark kind of escalated to the roughly 250 range. Last year, it crept right between 275 to 300. When you start creeping above that 300 range, you're pricing them out.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to put two together here, and we maybe get down there. I think we are. This part of this comes from Chris, and part of it comes from me, which is what percentage of people are buying for year-round versus seasonal? And part two of that is, are people buying specifically for use as Airbnb properties, whether they be seasonal or people that have a second or third house here?
Well, the numbers percentage-wise are hard to pinpoint, so I can't give you good, honest numbers on that. I do know that being able to, let's talk about the rental thing, because obviously that's a hot button for certain communities and some people. So when you think about that, there are a significant amount of people that do buy with the idea in mind that they can net some income when they need to out of their home, whether it be to rent a room periodically, Airbnb, or whether it be that they're only going to be here certain times and they can backfill and cover cost of acquisition and maintenance through that. So it's a real player, and that's a huge longer term conversation to have, but that's a big part.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have, Chris, this is the only, there was a comment here that MCED is going to hold a Zoom discussion with developers in 3 weeks around the whole concept of getting building trades workers. So that's a comment, not a question. And so I think we have all the questions that we had, Martin. And so thank you very, very much for doing this. This is great.
Well, thank you. It was very nice to see all of you, and appreciate the time, and certainly happy to answer other questions separately if you have any.
Clark,
Thank you.
Clark, you got a question, Clark?
Yeah, can I get in a quick question? I'm curious. The pandemic obviously has been fairly devastating to small business. What's going on with commercial real estate?
Not much. That's not to be flip, but right now, the biggest thing is funny. I was on a Zoom meeting this morning with a commercial broker from Portland. Office space is nobody's filling office space right now. Doesn't make any difference where you are because it's in such flux with people not necessarily going directly back to occupy office space. There are other things that are happening, just starting to happen a little bit, but pretty much the commercial market really took a big hit. The word in our conversation this morning was that there are monies available for the commercial market, but people aren't tapping on it because they are afraid to invest much money until they can start to see some normalcy return.
Martin, do you have time for one more question?
Sure.
A difficult one, I'm afraid, but you've mentioned how the financing is difficult. There's also a lot of federal bureaucracy and state bureaucracy that kind of discourages contractors from getting into workforce housing. You've got the NIMBY problem. You have now the prices of lumber and housing skyrocketing. Do you have any ideas as to how you pull off workforce housing with all these huge obstacles? How do you get around some of these things?
Good question. And a lot of it is going to be multifaceted because I believe it's going to be the private sector. This really comes into the municipal sector. It's got to be that honest, open dialogue of partnerships across different parts of our area. It's not going to be just one group that's going to drive that ship. It's what are we willing to provide? Developers, it's interesting because, talking to developers, for the most part, developers are just so entrenched in doing single projects and they're making good money on the single projects, they're not willing to do the branch out, and they're not willing to put their own time and effort into infrastructure and resistance of areas that they might like to do some work. So it's a good question, Bob. There's really no good answer until we're ready to talk about it.
Thank you,
Where are
Mark.
you residing now, Martin? Are you in Camden?
Am I now?
Your residence? Your
Oh,
home?
yes, yeah, I was born in Camden, and I have always, that's where I have been born and raised, and that's where I still live.
Martin, I
We're-
want to thank you immensely for joining us today and also staying after to answer the remaining questions. We really appreciated it. And best of luck finding some homes out there for all your clients.
Okay,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much, Martin.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.